Next steps, if you just lost your job, like this is, I think of this as the most immediate thing you could do, right? So like you're in the unfortunate situation where you were just notified that you've lost your employment, right? Like what do you do? And I know that this can be a very terrifying time for people, which is why I wanted to start with this topic right this morning out of the gate. So I want to first introduce both of you, if you're both okay with that. I want to start there, and then if you guys want to add anything, you're more than welcome to, and then I'll let the two of you take it away. And I did mention, Aaron and Jamie, that everyone can ask questions. You gotta have time for Q&A, and they're gonna ask those questions right in the live stream, and I will ask those questions to both of you. I'll go through those. So let's start with who are these wonderful women on the live stream right here. So Aaron Sergi, I know Aaron because we both work together in HR. Erin is a leadership development director at Cigna. I think she's a friend, she's a mentor, and she's an amazing woman with a great HR background. She's a very unique background between HR and some. She's really like a super engineering type brain too, which I love about her. So Erin, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you here this morning. And then Jamie Diglio. Which the funny thing was when I asked them to work together, I didn't know they would end up like enjoying each other's company so much. But Jamie Diglio, she works for a consulting company called Slalom. She's a senior sales director, and if you are on LinkedIn, you may have seen Jamie. Jamie's very active on LinkedIn. She's always posting content. And what I love about Jamie, the funny thing is Jamie and I live in Connecticut together, and we've never actually met in person. We are just LinkedIn friends, and I think she's amazing. But Jamie is, what I love about her is her passion for helping people and how she always integrates her family into a lot of what she does, which is really, like, to me, a big deal. She might have someone visit today. I might have someone visit today because we are in COVID world. So someone might run in at some point. We are not, this is live TV, everyone, right? So that may happen. So, all right. So there's the intro for Erin and Jamie. Ladies, I will let you take it from here. I'm going to put myself on mute, and we're going to leave, like I said, about maybe 7 to 10 minutes at the end for Q&A.
Thanks, Nick. I actually just had to text my husband and ask him to make my 12-year-old leave because he's kind of dancing around
there we go.
right outside my field of vision. So he's being asked to leave right now. Thank you. So it's true. Jamie and I only just became acquainted because of Nick bringing us together. So I guess if Jamie and Nick are LinkedIn friends, then Jamie and I are open to helping friends. When you say that, Jamie, we've been spending some time together.
Absolutely. And I think Nick, we already know this, but Nick has a really good knack for bringing people together.
Absolutely. And we're excited to share with you today some insights that we've learned along the way, some advice we've given and advice we've gotten as well. And we have a number of topics that we're going to hit on. Jamie, I think you were going to share the little nuggets we've got going.
Yeah, and I think and when Nick handed us this topic, and it could go in a lot of different directions. And when Erin and I were talking through, some of the people we've worked through the years who we've supported in their job, on their job search and their career journey, a few of the things, and they're going to be. The things we're going to talk about, a little bit high level, but we're going to talk about resumes, a little bit about resumes, networking, like how do you leverage the network that you have? Then what do you want to do next? Like this is an opportunity now to say, wow, I can now pivot in a different direction if possible. So we're going to talk a little bit about how do you do that? And then how do you sell yourself? How do you promote yourself? And when Erin and I were going through this, we realized that we both were big into mantras, right? We're big into the mantra bands and sort of like the mindset. And
something started to emerge.
Yeah. Do you want to share?
Yeah, we realized that as we were coming up with all the ideas that we've come across and that other people have shared with us, that the mantra that kind of emerged that I think might be good for you to keep in mind as you enter into this next stage is to remember to move fast, get focused, and stay flexible. So as we share the advice and information over the next half hour or so, you'll see that theme emerge. And we think it might be helpful to keep in mind as you move forward. And So the first thing that we wanted to share is about resumes, and that may seem pretty obvious that that might be the first thing you dig into. But as Nick said in the intro, lots of times your resume is not something that you've touched in a long time. Your head's down, giving your all to the role that you're in today, and you don't think about updating your resume. But obviously, that's one of the first things you need to do, and we recommend to move pretty quickly on it and not get hung up on making sure it's perfect. When we were talking about this as a next step, I was reminded of an experience that I had a number of years ago, where I was just looking on LinkedIn, and a job popped up that was one that I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. That's a company that I respect, and this job sounds like it might be something I could do. And just on the spur of the moment, I hit apply. LinkedIn makes it really easy to apply. So I hit reply, and it wasn't too long, maybe a few days, that I got a response from a recruiter for that position. And she wanted to set me up with the hiring manager to talk. And I was excited. I thought, well, that's great. I'd love to talk to the hiring manager. But you know what? I'd really like to update my resume first. I don't think my resume really reflects me and my current job. And I want to get a chance to update my resume. So I'll email you back. I'll let you know when it's updated, then we can set up some time. And a couple days turned into a couple weeks. And by the time I realized that I just needed to set up the time to talk with the hiring manager without having my resume updated, because it just wasn't going to get to it, they had already moved on. And there was not, it wasn't like any hard feelings, just they had already had a few candidates who were more ready to engage in the conversation, and I missed that opportunity. And so it's just something that stuck with me, that that you don't have to have it be perfect, and there's always that time to kind of circle back and make it better, but don't get hung up on making sure that your resume is perfect before you move forward.
Yeah. And that is, I know we're saying this, but a lot of people, it's like, no, I need to have it exactly how it needs to be. And the reality is you have a lot of different people looking at this. And especially like Erin, you said in your example, you had already made it to talking to a hiring manager, you're already in, right? And I actually think that, sort of playing it cool, you're like, listen, I haven't updated it. I'm going to give it to you. I can talk through where I've been and sort of create some curiosity with that too, especially if you already have got the first hiring manager, talking with you. So yeah, it's never going to be perfect. Just get it out there. Get the resume out there.
And get it out there if you feel comfortable. You could get it out there to kind of a safe space too, and pick a couple people that are in your network. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about how to engage your network in just a few seconds, but you could start to engage your network with help with your resume. So maybe pick one or two people that you've worked with in the past who know you pretty well, know what you've worked on even, and ask them to put their eyes on your resume so that they can give you some advice. Maybe it's on format, but maybe it's also on the content. So they know what you've worked on and what might be most important to highlight on your resume. So really leverage your network in this first initial stages to give you that feedback on your resume. And from a formatting perspective, there's a lot of recruiters on LinkedIn. And if you're on LinkedIn, you probably are only a few clicks away from being connected to a recruiter if you don't have recruiters in your network already. But maybe ask one of those recruiter connections that you have on LinkedIn to give it a once over. They don't know you as well as your network would, but they know resumes because they see a lot of them. So they can give you that advice on what's important to have on your resume, what's important to be aware of as you're formatting, and maybe even some of the keywords that you should highlight if you're looking to get attention in a particular area.
And one of the most important things, make sure your LinkedIn matches your resume. Make sure the dates, everything is consistent. Really, this is, that is so important because it's the first place that someone's going to go. And, and we're going to get into this a little bit, but, and how are you showing up on LinkedIn? How are you showing up differently? How is your personality? I mean, it's a piece of paper, right?
Mhm.
How can you get different data points? LinkedIn is a place where you can sort of triangulate that and get people can get more information about you. And also one other thing, and we're going to move over to networking, I just thought of is oftentimes people don't put the most interesting thing about themselves on their resume. And I've had people that I've helped who like were all American athlete or a classical pianist, and they don't put it on there. And I'm like, why not? That shows your ability to compete, your ability to sort of, just to have an expertise in something. It's really interesting. And people like to hear, they want to see that. They want to see you come out, in your resume. So however you can show up differently is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just thought of that. It's something that people do all the time. Like, who would care about that? I'm like, people care. They want to see how you're different. That's important. So the other thing, and I know later in the day we're going to have some more specific tips on resumes. But when Aaron and I were talking, the second thing that really came out was like the network, right?
Mhm.
I'm big on how do you leverage your network? And oftentimes what I find is it's like, all right, you've lost your job. Okay, take a deep breath
Mhm.
and realize this has happened to lots of people, right?
Yep.
Everybody is at different points in their career, has had some sort of job transition. I mean, I remember, I lost my job right after 9/11 in New York. And it was a tough time for me, but it pivoted me, and it pushed me into a different direction that I would not be here today talking with you about this if that hadn't happened. And I know it's hard to see that right now because you're sort of in the sort of like you're in it, and you're like, okay, I need to find the next thing, but don't suffer in silence. And I see that too often is that people are like, oh, I need a new job and I've just applied to like a zillion different companies. And I'm like, hold on, back up. You have a network, right? You've spent the last, a certain amount of years with building accomplishments with people. So the first thing, I really like think about when you want to leverage your network, who are the people that you have what I call a bond with.
Yeah.
Your bond is who has been in the trenches with you. Who is that person or those people that you worked on a big client project with, or that, you had some, you helped out big time, and those people remember. So advice I give to people who come to me, who are looking for, for their next role, I say, make a very small list of people who you have that relationship with. And then what you need to do is figure out a way to reach out to them. Now, hopefully you've stayed connected with those people, but if you haven't, one strategy is in that example, say you had someone that, you worked on a shared client out in California and you did a bunch of, cross US flights. You reach out to them and say, hey, I was thinking about you the other day. Remember when we used to work with that client, and sort of have them remember back to the relationship. And so is that trigger, right? To have them remember, wow, that was like, that memory. And then it opens up the conversation. You say, hey, I'm thinking about, trying something new. I'd love to connect, right?
Mhm.
Find a reason to reach out to them.
Yeah, and you have to get past, like you were saying at the beginning of this segment about networking. You have to let go of feeling any sort of any sort of shame in regards to your circumstances. There's no shame in not having a job. There's circumstances that resulted in that, and probably beyond your control. And so you have to move past that and start to take control. And if you haven't, maintain that network because you've been so busy at work and that hasn't been a priority, getting past that first kind of, okay, I haven't talked to this person in a long time. How do I make that connection? It's really important because engaging your network is key to getting more leverage than just yourself. You're not in this alone. And you need to make sure that you get that leverage from your network and the people who have an interest in seeing you be successful, thinking about those relationships that you have. And I know, Jamie, you had some thoughts around how to really consider those relationships as you
Right.
engage?
So the worst thing you can do is reach out to all your people in your network who possibly you haven't talked to in forever. Be like, hey, can you get me a job?
Mhm.
It literally, like,
Too much
that's
pressure.
people, like, get me a job. You literally put people on their heels and on defense. You do not want to do that. Do not do Nick's laughing. Do not do that. Okay. What you do is you reach out and say, hey, I really admire, what you've been up to. I know you're connected to a lot of people. I'm in the process of reevaluating what I'm doing next. I'd love to talk with you about, some of the ideas you would have, or maybe some people I could connect you with. One of the, so that's important, right? Because you only have one shot with these people, and then because if you just jump at them, they are going to, in the job search can be one of the loneliest things, right? Because, and I'm saying this because I know that the people that are listening are experiencing this. The people that you think you're going to advocate for you are not, and they're in hiding. And it can be really, really lonely. And this is where, you just have to keep plugging away and know this happens to lots of people. There's all kinds of reasons why people are busy. They can't reach out. They're not going to reach out.
Hey, Jamie, just one point on that too. And Dr. Michelle Dropkin is going to be joining us later about staying positive during a job search, because this can be, for those of you that are not in sales, hearing no over and over again when you're applying for jobs can really be like a really dejecting experience. For those in sales, you're probably used to hearing no, so it's not as bad, but we're going to talk about that later, Jamie, to that exact point, because I know you got to stay positive, and you can't let the no's like make you so dejected. You don't want to continue.
It's interesting,
Great
Jamie,
point.
when we were talking about things you can do, you had a suggestion
Yes.
around one of the ways to engage your network, and I actually tested it out this morning. I'll let you share what that idea is, but I think it's actually really one of the ways you could stay positive. I think it could help with that, feeling positive. So I'll let you share the exercise, but then I'll share with you the results of that too.
Oh, good. You tried it out.
Yeah, I tried it out.
Me out. Okay. Yeah. So we talked about making your list of people, but then what I want you to do is I want you to reach out to 3 people, right? Text them. Text 3 people that have worked with you or people that are in your network. And I want you to text them and say, hey, I'm working through the job, I'm in whatever you want to say. I'm in transition, and I'm working on some career development or leader or personal development. Can you text me the first 3 adjectives you would use to describe working with me?
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Do it on the text. Okay. Yep. You are immediately going to get back 9 data points, right? Words, language, how people would describe you. And this is really important because oftentimes I always say is like, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. We're really, it's difficult for us to sort of see what's the thing that is, what are we good at? Right? Yep. Because our natural gifts, which is, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but like our natural gifts, they're natural to us. So we think it's easy, but for other people, it's not. So, if you're a master communicator, yeah. So
usually positive. Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's a very quick, and do it on text, and it will give you a little positive pinch. So Erin, what happened when you did it?
Yeah. So the responses back, I actually chose 2 people that I've worked for, and then I also chose 2 people that have worked for me. And I got some really fast responses back. And I got the first 3 kind of within the first 15 minutes of sending out the text message. And then I just got another response now. She was probably working out or something and couldn't get back to me right away. But it was a quick response, gave me some good adjectives that I can, and ways to think about what it is that is my brand, how people think of working with me, or even just think of me. And it is a low pressure way to engage with your network. So we were talking about how, you don't want to just go out to your whole network and say, okay, I'm out of a job. I can help me find a job. This is a way to, not a lot, not very hard. And you actually ask people, don't think about it too much. Just give me the first couple words that come to mind. You get to see who's really interested in supporting you in this endeavor, at least a little bit. And in a way that doesn't put a lot of pressure on them. When we were prepping for this session, I actually talked to someone who gave me a really great idea that actually takes this a little bit further and comes into play as we think about identifying what you want to do next. And it involves engaging your network a little bit more.
Right. Well, so then the other thing is take the conversation. I've talked with people who have been in the job search, and I'm like, oh, I'll connect you with so and so. Maybe they know some opportunities. Like, well, if their jobs don't make X amount of money, I'm not going to talk to them. And I'm like, no, you take the conversation. You have no idea where the conversation is going to go. You always take the conversation. And I have a real I use this often is like, who cares? Right. So when you're thinking about who cares about talking to me, the C, right? So cares, know that every time you're talking with someone, the C could be a client, a future client, an advocate, future advocate for you, a referral, an employee, or a sponsor. Anytime you're talking with someone, like you're going to figure out how do you make it so that they want to work with you in some capacity, right? They might have a job opportunity, but they could be a sponsor for you for something else, or they talk to somebody that talks to somebody down the road. So you want to show up, be open to talking with people in your network, and you're practicing. This is practicing as well, right?
Yep.
In that. So now that we talked about that, but now, Erin, we really want to then say, all right, so once we've done some of this work, right, to get our words, our language, our resume, and sort of reach out to our network, but we got to also then, you had mentioned, how do we get really focused on what do we want to do next? Is it the same job? Is it a different job? So can you talk a little bit about that?
It doesn't have to be the same job. You think of it as an opportunity. So we've talked a little bit about shifting your mindset. And shifting your mindset when you're networking so that you're not just thinking in terms of what is this conversation and transaction resulting in? Is it resulting in a job? Well, it doesn't always have to result in a job offer. It's an investment. It's also shifting your mindset so that you're thinking of this as an opportunity. Maybe it's an opportunity to do something different. And one of the ways that you can try and figure that out is to really do a skills assessment. And the idea that I discussed with a friend in preparation for this, that I really resonated with me was that you can't. It's okay. You can do a skills assessment for yourself, but wouldn't it be better to have a skills assessment that includes perspectives from other people you've worked with? So think of your network. People that you've worked with as an employee, side by side, as a boss, as their manager, or also people who you've worked with as a client. So maybe you reach out to someone who was a consultant for you on a particular project, and now that you're not in that relationship, get their perspective. But one of the ways that you could do this is to engage them in your skills is to ask them, not just those adjectives, right? That's kind of the quick hit. Move fast. Now it's about getting focused. What are those strengths that you offer? What are your opportunities? Ask for honest feedback so that well, this is an opportunity for me. What also are my strengths? And as we were saying before, you don't always know what are those strengths that make you unique. You might know that you're good at something, but you might not realize exactly how that shows up when you're in the room, when your voice is being heard, and it's unique. It's a unique perspective. And so what the suggestion was to do that kind of more 360 sort of skills assessment with your network. Maybe you get the group together on a Zoom call. It's 2020, as we all know, and so we Zoom everything. And so maybe you get this group of a handful of people that you know and trust, and have them brainstorm and share with you what are those skills that are your strengths and what are your opportunities. And then you can really think about putting the pieces together like building blocks. And you've been putting them together in a particular way for maybe it was your last job, maybe it was your last 5 jobs that you have done a similar sort of role. But if you have a really good understanding of what your strengths and your opportunities are, you can actually pluck those building blocks that are your strengths and you can maybe put them together in a different way. With those words that you have, now you can do a job search that kind of takes you outside of the we were using a Lego analogy, right? Your kids get that box of Legos that has it's a kit, and they follow the instructions and they put it together a certain way, and they're reluctant to take it apart. This is your opportunity now. Take it apart, break it, as my kids say. I don't want to break it. No, break it and put it back together in some different way. And you can do your search with that understanding that you have of your skills, to maybe go in a different direction and set yourself up for even more success in the future.
I mean, what you're talking about, Erin, is building your narrative, right? Like, so it really is sort of like, okay, where you've been, where you are today, and where you're going, and having a clear story on that. Maybe you went from a big company to a small company to a medium-sized company. Now what's your narrative? Well, now you've understood how to operate in multiple different environments. It's all about taking the pieces, right? We always look back and sort of like, okay, like you said, the building blocks, the Legos. I love that. I love Legos and I hate Legos.
Yes, I know.
My kids are better at them than I am. But yeah, absolutely. I'm just looking at time, Nick. The last thing we wanted to talk about before we open up for some questions was, all right, once you've got, we've done the resume, tips on the resume, the network, getting focused on what you want to do next. And then how do you promote yourself? How do you sell yourself? So this kind of ties into the narrative piece. What is your story? And the biggest, we overthink it. It's your mood and your mindset. How are you showing up, right? How are you showing up when you get the conversation? What mood are you in? What is your story? Are you being woe is me, right? Get it. It's okay to be frustrated if you've lost your job, but you know what? It's the situation. What are you going to do about it? Let's pivot, right? So how you're showing up, that is all about, I always say that remember before I said, with that CARES analogy, in every conversation you're having, those people are going to remember, you want them to remember you.
And also feel invested in helping you. And we talked a bit about making sure that you're not putting too much pressure on any particular points in your network.
Right.
So you're engaging in a way that encourages people to want to help you, but doesn't put too much accountability on them. So, asking questions of your network that aren't only focused on that transaction of landing the next job, but again, thinking of that each conversation as an investment, and asking questions like, who else do you think that I should be talking to? Even following up with the people who've been helping you in your network, to let them know, hey, you know what? I did connect with so-and-so that you recommended, and it was a great conversation. And they suggested that I talk to this person and this person. And so you're circling back with your network and helping them to feel more engaged in your success and your progress. And who knows, maybe that actually triggers another thought that makes that reach of your network go even further without putting too much accountability and pressure back on them. They are more in control of how much or how little they're engaging based on what they have the time and availability for. And when you are celebrating your success, they are celebrating with you as well, because they've been able to help you a little bit along the way. And again, you're not alone. So really important that you have that mindset of each conversation, you're getting some value out of it, and you're bringing value back, in making people feel good about helping. There's also that aspect to it as well.
Well, because I say this all the time, and it's true for those of you maybe you're not in sales or you don't like sales, every conversation is a sales conversation. You are selling yourself. You are selling what your viewpoints are. And to that point it's like compounded interest, right? So each time you're having a conversation and you get introduced to someone, that's a great conversation. Then that person, another good conversation. And then the person who initially made the introduction is feeling good. They were an advocate for you. So
Yep.
it's very different if I said, hey, Nick, can you get me a job?
Right.
Nick, I'm pretty good, right? You can get me a job. Or instead of doing that, I say, Nick, I'd either say, Nick, you're really connected. You know me a bit. Like, who should I be talking to? right? Or another strategy is if I don't know Nick, but I know that Nick has a job that I'd be interested in. I see Erin, I see Nick. I was wondering if, I'm in this job, looking for a new job opportunity. I don't know. Do you think you could introduce me to him? So then Erin being able to be an advocate versus me saying, hey, Nick, get me a job. It's like that. It's coming from people like to buy. They don't like to feel sold. So it becomes like, instead of me like pressuring Nick, it becomes, Erin's found somebody really good that Nick should talk to.
Right.
So he's
and being flexible like that. So it just kind of goes back again and just remind everyone of the mantra. Still have to figure out how I'm going to get that onto a new mantra band bracelet for me. But move fast, get focused, and stay flexible. That's really something to remember all along, because like Jamie just said, you don't have to go direct. You can use your network and flex your network in a way that helps you to keep the accountability at a level that your network can tolerate and sustain.
Yep. Yeah.
So I know we need to wrap it up so that we can
So
see if
ladies,
any questions.
We have people from all over the U.S. and the world. We have people from Brazil, the U.K., Saudi Arabia, all over the world on right now. And we do have some questions. So if you are open to questions, I'd like to throw some out to the two of you, if that works.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So for those of you that are on the live stream and you have a question, please just reply. Whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, please just reply as a comment with your question, and I will get it to Erin and Jamie. I'll kind of go through all of them. So the first question for both of you, and so Erin and Jamie, I had a break from 9:45 to 10, so we're actually okay to go past 9:45. Our next session is not till 10 o'clock. I had a feeling we might go along with this one. So first question is, I'm a career relauncher. So my major challenge has been a long career gap, and then you throw COVID on top of that, and that's really working against this individual search. Any advice for people that are trying to relaunch a career right now?
Yes. Yeah, I would say it's a lot of the same. I mean, the same advice. It's not. I was thinking about that this morning. That the title of our segment is around what to do if you've lost your job, but it applies just as universally to what if you're looking for a new job. What if you're looking for a new job after a break? What if you're just looking for a new job? What if you're looking for your first job out of college? I mean, very similar advice I would give. But Jamie, did you have something else more?
Yeah, so I think one of the things is to keep busy. So back to what do you want to do? If you say you want to make a pivot or you want to get into a new career, what are some of the, maybe it's getting skilled up in a specific technology, a little practice area, show what you've been up to, right? Getting certified in XYZ. What are you learning? What are you bringing to the table, into the conversation? So don't just I know you're in the job search, but what else are you doing to keep your mind growing so that you can be active in those? When you get those interviews, you can talk about what you've been up to, not just, I've been up to looking for a job. So I think, especially if you've had a gap, right, from, I think you said stay at home, it was someone from with children, definitely get figure out what you're interested in and get certifications. Nobody can take that away from you, right? And we were just talking about that, Erin, with someone with Workday, right?
But also, well, yeah, that's true. And any little bit of exposure, whether it's, I've actually encouraged people to, if you can get something that's like even a contract position, or even an internship. I know that there was that movie a while back, The Intern, where someone did a really untraditional internship. But see what sort of maybe internship you could get. I know that might be a little bit of a different idea. I've also seen people really take on leadership opportunities in their community. Whether it is organizing a fundraiser for your children's school, or being involved in an animal shelter, whatever speaks to you and you have a passion for, get involved and see where you can take a lead, because those skills are transferable to other scenarios and other situations that would translate into a job situation as well.
So,
that creates
Aaron,
the bond. That's the bond, right? So
that's a great piece of advice. John Vasilina, who's one of our presenters, just asked that question about volunteering. So I appreciate you sharing that. I want to share one other thing with that individual that asked that question. There are organizations out there specifically with the goal in mind of helping women get back to work, helping veterans get back to work. There's a bunch of these organizations. So for the individual watching, there's an organization that I know the owner. It's called Untapped Potential Inc. Candace Friedenberg is the woman who runs that, and her whole mission is returning women to work. So I'll put that in the comments. But like, if you're a woman or if you're a veteran, check out some of those organizations that are specifically created to do that. I think that's a really great way to take advantage of that. So all right, so we have a couple other questions. This individual worked for themselves, did consulting work for 3 years, but they want to return to the corporate environment as a collaborator. What are your main tips, considering I've been out of traditional corporate companies for more than 3 years? Anything different from what you said on how to maybe go from being an entrepreneur back to the corporate world?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about getting perspective about what your skills are and what makes you unique. And I think that having been an entrepreneur and on a contractor on your own for a while does give you a different perspective that could be something that could be something that a big company is looking for. And so finding out what that thing is that makes your voice unique through that kind of skills assessment, and then seeking out those opportunities where in the job description, in the posting, you're sensing that they are looking for that different perspective. That could be helpful.
Yeah, and I would also say if you've been an entrepreneur, there's we talk about, talent getting up to speed. You're an entrepreneur, like you are able to be self-sufficient. So there's a lot of value and impact that you can make. I would say if you've been consulting, then look for temporary or, consulting, short or long-term consulting opportunities, or, talk to consulting firms that are looking to maybe subcontract and, you don't know where that could take you, right? So you get involved and keep doing it. And I know there's lots of that opportunity. I think, looking at it as going in as the contractor or the consultant, even if it's not full time, it would probably turn into a full time if you, just start small.
Yeah, and I know that Jamie's probably going to be surprised to hear me say this because she comes at things from the sales perspective and I do not. But having your narrative as to why you want to make this pivot. So what is it that is the reason behind it, and what you feel that value is for the company, having that narrative down, I think would be really helpful. So sell it.
Yeah, sell it. Yes, Aaron.
See, I'm learning from Jamie.
You're learning, Aaron. All right, this is a really great question. I love this question. How have you seen vulnerability used successfully to create meaningful connections that lead to opportunities? Have you seen it misused? If so, how did that play out?
Okay, where do I start with that? I mean, I've seen lots of people misuse it because they don't understand what vulnerability is. They think it's a thing, not a way of being.
Jamie, while you're thinking, I would say I think the most important thing is being genuine, in my opinion, is probably one of the things how I would answer that. But I mean, two of you?
I have an idea.
You have an idea, Aaron? Go ahead.
I do. Yeah. So we talk about thriving through change and showing how you have learned and adapt to change. And I think that one of the ways that leaders and others can show vulnerability and have it work to their advantage is if you can share what you learned as a result of the situation. So, maybe it was a mistake, maybe it was a failure of whatever proportion, and it has left you with that vulnerability, but it's also left you with some lessons learned. And if you can show that you have actually kind of processed those lessons and are either have applied them or are clear about how you would apply them in the future, I think that could be a way that you could spin that vulnerability and share that. So, actually sharing what it was that made you vulnerable and how you learned from it could actually work to your advantage.
Thanks, Erin. We got another question came in. I interviewed for a job in a new industry I'm interested in and made a connection there, but did not get the job. Is it okay to reach out to that person for advice on how to break into that new industry?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. You're not circling back to them for, that's actually a great way to put it. And I think it's one of those like lower pressure sort of questions. So how did you, or ask the question, how did you get into this, right? So people love to share their stories. Mm-hmm. And if you ask it in that way where, well, how did you get started in this industry? And do you have any ideas for me? Or is there anyone else you think I should talk to who has also, made the switch into this industry that could help me figure out how to pave that path? I think it's a great idea.
Awesome. All right, we have another question, more of a tactical resume question, and we're going to have actually sort of the individual that asked this. Our 10 o'clock session with Liz Martinez is actually going to be all about resumes, but we can definitely answer this now. Does the format of the resume matter, and is there a specific way to write an ATS compliant resume?
That is not my specialty.
I was going to say we might be better off punting that one to Liz. But
I mean, I think Liz will definitely have some answers to that one.
Yeah, I've actually kind of done something a little different with my resume, and I feel really strongly about it. But it's different. And I've gotten some people who've looked at it and said, it's it's not the way they would do it. But I mean, I think that if you feel really strongly about how you're presenting the information, and it's clean and there's not misspellings, then I mean, you do you. But I think we need to leave the ATS compliant question to someone who's more. Yeah,
we'll have Liz answer that one. But I actually want to just highlight one thing here, that there was an article on LinkedIn that 85% of jobs are filled through networking, not just going to a website and applying, right? So yes, your resume is important. Absolutely. Is it important to be, have certain keywords for a job you're applying for? Yes. But what is even more important is networking with people at that company and getting in front of a hiring manager or an HR individual that's actually hiring for that job, because that's going to be ultimately your best in.
Yeah. And the order matters, Nick. I always say the order matters, because what happens is, and Erin and I talked about this because we didn't want to go down a rat hole on it. But if you're going to, the number of people say to me, oh, I applied for job at so-and-so. And I'm like, hello, why didn't you tell me? I could have put you in front of a person that could, get your resume in there. And it's like, look to see who you know or who in your network knows somebody at that company. It's very easy to figure out who the hiring manager is. Right. I'm not trying to say bypass the process, but bypass the process. If you can especially if the person can get a referral for you, if they really want to be an advocate for you, they could become a referral for you. They could submit your resume as a referral versus just, blindly on LinkedIn or whoever you're submitting.
Yeah. And so just Jamie and I, we don't agree on everything. It may seem like we do agree on everything, but we don't agree on everything. And so we actually disagreed on this. And so we thought we'd leave it off, but of course we're sharers. So we're going to anyway.
Being transparent.
I like for people to find the job that they're interested in on the company's website and apply, and then use their network to follow up on their application. And so it's the exact opposite. And there's no one right answer. There's absolutely, valid points of what Jamie's just talking about around, one of the things that she pointed out was you might apply for a job without using your network first, and you might get rejected. And then when your network is kicked in and helping you to follow up on it, it might be a little bit more complicated for them to pull it back out of the rejection pile, right, versus if you had used your network up front. My thought on the opposite end of the spectrum is that if you're leveraging your network and you want to make it as easy as possible for them to follow up on something for you, having already applied, being able to share with them, hey, I applied for position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And they can go right out there to their company website and they can find it and they can see who the recruiter is, and they can quickly do that, make that connection, as opposed to having them have to hunt and peck. So, but there's no one right answer.
Right. It depends on how close your network, and how connected you are to the people there, and how well you know them. And it's situational. So I like that we have a little banter on that.
Yeah.
So we've got a few other questions. I'm actually going to add Liz to the stream because Liz is ready for our next session. So I'm going to add Liz. So Liz Martinez, welcome. We were just talking, Liz, about a question specifically about resumes and the format around ATS compliance. So we'll have to hit on that in your session because I know you were a guru at that.
Yep, it's in my session. Yep.
Awesome. Okay, but I want to, Liz, we're just gonna wrap up with a few more questions before we get to your session at 10 o'clock Eastern. So this is a really interesting one, Erin and Jamie. Has anyone else noticed a large number of companies or recruiters reaching out to or interviewing candidates and then we've decided not to fill the position at this time? And I think the individual's question is like, how do you follow up with the recruiter if that happens? What's your recommendation there?
Well,
I think following up is still a good idea, because your interest is still there, and who knows, maybe there's still interest in you as a candidate, but in all honesty, they're not filling the position at this time. Maybe it's budget concerns or who knows what. So recruiters are keeping pipelines of candidates, and they like to have those candidates on hand and warm. So showing that you are still interested, even if it's not going to happen right at this moment, I think is still positive.
Yeah, well said. Thanks, Erin. Go ahead, Jamie.
No, it's just that things, situations change so rapidly, and it depends on the organization. And this is where I get myself in trouble with recruiters, because then I say, like, bypass the recruiter. It depends on the organization and how organized they are and how close the recruiting team is to the hiring managers, because if they are in the loop or not in the loop, how disconnected. It depends on the company. It depends on the type of role. Obviously, I come at it from a sales perspective. So I'm like, how do we figure out how to get to the person who's going to make the decision? So I get the leg up on knowing if the job's going to become open or not, bypassing. So it's like, that's Erin, we're rule following and rule breaking. I'm like the rule breaker here.
All right, so we have two more questions, and we're gonna pivot and say thank you to Erin and Jamie and switch to Liz's session. So, and we have two questions that are kind of like similar, and then I have one that's a little bit separate. So, how to generate contact with someone that I have no intimacy, I don't know them well, right? Without becoming invasive or boring. Like basically the question is, I want to talk to someone, I don't know them at all. How do you approach them, right? And what's the best way to do that? And any thoughts on that quickly?
You find out something they're interested in, looking on LinkedIn of where their interests are, what they're passionate about, and then sending them a note which talks about, you have a similar passion. If it's true, right? Find where that bond is, that commonality, or maybe you went to the same school, or find a reason and why you're reaching out. Be direct, but get creative as to, and do your homework. Why I'm reaching out.
Yeah, and I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn and suggest that we talk. And one of the ways that I find time to have those conversations, even when you think that there's no time, is to frame it in, let's have a walk and talk, right? So we all are looking for ways to get out of our house and get exercise and use our time productively. And we all have our phones with our little earbuds. So, suggesting that we have a walk and talk, you're suggesting that you get some exercise and outside time, and you're going to have a productive conversation. That time flies by, and you've got steps, and you've gotten to know that person a little bit better.
All right, so we are at time. It is 10 o'clock Eastern. Jamie and Erin, thank you so much. Just such great advice. I did put in the comments for Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube your public LinkedIn URLs. So if people want to connect with Erin and Jamie, they're more than happy to connect with people. So feel free to follow up with them. Again, this session is being recorded, so we will make sure that we get this up on YouTube probably over the weekend, and we'll share that next week. But ladies, thank you.